What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to this edition of the Prediction Show here on the First and Long College Football Show. Week 5. Mason, how you doing? We've got some awesome matchups coming up. It was a great week 4, really good week 4, kind of wacky, but really entertaining. And don't look now, but we've got some really, really awesome matchups. How are you, man? You ready to break it down? We've also got our top 15 that we do every single week here on the channel. So we'll go through that before we get through these matchups. But how you doing this morning?
Doing good, man. We've got another really, really exciting week, I think, from a matchup perspective. It actually reminds me a lot of week 1 and how hyped up week 1 was. There's a lot of really good matchups. We only have time to break down 4 games today, but we could easily turn this into 8 games. I mean, 10 games. There's some really juicy matchups going on this week. I'm really excited to just sit down in front of the TV on Saturday and just watch some football. I mean, we're going to be running 4 screens throughout the entire day, just watching football. It should be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get my chair up here. Let's get comfy. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, and it especially when you get these big matchups like this, and um, you know, even as early as it is in the season, it's these games are going to affect the college football playoff and the conference championship outlook and all that type of stuff. So here we are, like a quarter of the way through the season, and we're about to have games that are going to decide the season for some of these teams, especially with as high as the expectations are for some of these teams. But before we get into the big matchups, let's jump into our updated top 15 here, Mason, if you want to bring that up. Every single week here on the First and Long College Football Show, we give you our top 15. So this is our rankings here. And so here we go. We're going to take a look here. 15, we got Tennessee, followed by Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Iowa State. Look, we had Tennessee sliding down this week, and it was really just because you've got other teams getting wins, that were more impressive, right? So it kind of slides Tennessee down, who's got the loss, obviously, to Georgia. You can't fault them too much for that, I guess, necessarily. But at this point in the season, you've got to acknowledge the fact that you've got a loss, and Tennessee doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of great wins, obviously. So they slide down a bit. Georgia Tech, moving on up. Georgia Tech is blazing a trail to the ACC championship game, so I expect to see them continue to cruise on up as long as they can keep handling business, which if you look at their schedule and you look at the team on hand for Georgia Tech, it shouldn't be a problem. Ole Miss, big matchup this week. I won't spend too much talking about them because we're about to break them down here in just a minute, but they'll be matched up with LSU. They play the quarterback hokey pokey, and it just doesn't seem to matter who plays quarterback for Lane Kiffin. They look like a Heisman contender. So we'll talk more about that. Mizzou looking really good. Iowa State has been hanging around. What do you think about 11 through 15 here?
Yeah, Iowa State, like you said, just kind of hanging around, doing their thing, keep on chopping. Not our number 1 Big 12 team, so a little foreshadowing there, but definitely a team that could win the Big 12. I think that from a talent perspective, they absolutely have the horses to do it. Probably the best quarterback in the Big 12 for my money, at least. Really like the Cyclones this year. Mizzou is that kind of surprise team in the SEC, I would say. I just really like Bo Prabula. I mean, I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, but this guy's going to play on Sunday, and he's leading the team, leading that offense, and doing a really nice job. I think that Mizzou is a playoff team for my money moving forward. Ole Miss, like you said, we'll break them down here in a minute. I think that they're actually surprising some folks with their defense, and considering what all that they lost. I've been really pleased with what I've seen from the Rebels. Georgia Tech, obviously, a couple of big wins so far this year. They got to keep it rolling. I think that they have the team to keep this thing on the tracks and I'm not predicting an undefeated regular season or anything like that, but I think that as of right now, number 2 team in the ACC, based on what they've put on film. And then Tennessee, heartbreaking loss a couple weeks ago. They bounced back, score 70 on absolutely nobody. So it was, it was a comfortable win for Tennessee, but no reason to slide them out of the top 15 at this point just because of a loss to what I think is a pretty good Georgia team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on up here, 10 through 6. We've got Texas Tech, obviously moving up after a big victory over Utah there in the Utes' backyard. Texas A&M also moving on up. They've, trending up the last couple of weeks, I guess you could say, after the win there against Notre Dame. We'll talk more Texas A&M as they've got a big game coming up. They'll be hosting the Auburn Tigers, who just lost to Oklahoma, who is ranked 7th here. That Oklahoma kind of just hung around. We didn't really bump them up necessarily for that win against Auburn. I wasn't like amazed with the win or anything. I thought it was a good, solid win for sure. We'll figure out more about Auburn this week as they face off Texas A&M. As I said, Florida State at the 8th spot. They've been just kind of hanging around, waiting on some big matchups for them. And we've been saying that about the number 6 team here on the ranking, Penn State. We're waiting on them to play somebody. They haven't played anybody this season, but we don't have to wait very much longer. We've got a whiteout going on this Saturday. We're going to break it down here in a minute. I actually was very surprised to see this as a 7:30 p.m. game coming up this weekend. But 6 through 10 here. Any thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I mean Penn State, definitely it's put up or shut up. It's nut cutting time, This is supposed to be the team that wins it all. I mean, realistically, for the Nittany Lions, it's now or never, in my opinion. They have the roster to do it. Going to be really interesting though, going up against Oregon. We'll get to that game here in a minute. Really like the Sooners. I thought that they had their B game going up against Auburn this week, but still were able to etch out a win thanks to the refs. I think in a lot of ways. Florida State, look, keep on chopping. They got another big matchup this week. I think that they should be able to handle business, but it is going to be a little bit of a test. And actually next week they've got Miami, so that's really when we'll know more about Florida State. But Texas A&M and Texas Tech, it's interesting that, and we don't have Texas in our top 5, shocker. But it's interesting that we've got Texas A&M and Texas Tech ahead of Texas. Never would have thought going into the season that those 2 programs would be the best 2 out of the state of Texas. But here we are, with Aggies and Red Raiders kind of leading the show and leading the pack there in that state.
Yeah, absolutely. Big surprise to everybody in the country, no doubt. 1 through 5 here. Not really any surprises. We moved Miami up. I mean, obviously, I think they deserve it. Again, you talk about teams winning with their B game. Going back and looking at it and kind of reviewing some of the games from week 4, in the moment, some wins can seem better than what they actually are. And just kind of looking back at that, I didn't think that was like the strongest performance in the world that we're going to, probably not the most strongest performance we'll see from Miami this year. How about that? But they get the win anyway, right? And they get it in comfortable fashion as they pull away in the 4th quarter against the struggling Florida Gators. Georgia at the 3 spot. Georgia's about to be tested, right? We got Alabama coming into town this week. We did not have Alabama in our top 15 here, but we're going. If we had a top 25, obviously Alabama would be comfortably within that top 25. I do believe, just based on the fact of we know they're one of the most talented teams in the country. Roster wise, but they're going to be matched up with Georgia this week. We'll see more about Georgia. They're battle tested. We know that Georgia is battle tested and they've answered the call. We'll see if that Georgia defense can stiffen up a bit because it was a little bit lax, particularly in the secondary against Tennessee. LSU going to get a big test and actually are a road dog this week. We'll talk more about it, but they're going against Ole Miss. And I'm just spoiler alert, I've got a bad feeling about this one for LSU. We'll talk more about it. That the defenses look good this year, but the longer the season goes on, the resume looks worse and worse for LSU, the teams that they've beat. So that is, I think, a little bit of the hang up for some people with LSU. And I've seen them as far as 7 or 8 in some people's rankings. So maybe we have them a little bit too high here. And then Oregon at the number 5 spot. Oregon hasn't played anybody. I mean, Oklahoma State was a quote unquote power 4 opponent, but I mean, not really by roster. I mean, there's plenty of non-power 4 teams I think that have better teams and rosters and could beat the stew out of Oklahoma State right now. So I think we know that Oregon is good. That's why we have them at the 5th spot here. They passed the eye test. They don't have any losses. You don't have any reason to really rag on them or anything like that. And so with that being said, we have to look at the teams and give some kind of eye test, and that's why Oregon's at the 5th spot here. And I can already tell you a team that we messed up and left out of the top 15, but I'll leave that here to talk about here maybe in just a second. But what do you think about 1 through 5?
Yeah, I mean, really the only, I guess, movement we had here was Miami going up to number 2. To be honest, Mark, I think this is a ranking from a resume standpoint for Miami. I don't think that they're the number 2 team in the country. I think that we saw a lot of holes in their passing game. In particular, looked like Carson Beck was missing some throws, kind of put the ball in harm's way. And honestly, Florida just wasn't able to capitalize on it well enough. But Miami's the one that I think could be dropping out of this very soon. Everything else, I mean, I don't really have an issue with. Like you said, LSU. We'll know more about LSU, but they're definitely on upset alert going into week 5 here.
Well, I'll tell you who we forgot to put in our top 15, and honestly, they deserved it. Was Indiana.
Yeah,
should have had Indiana in the top 15. We slipped up on that. I'll admit that to you all. And if you made it to this point in the video, because we'll clip this and put this out as just a top 25 video. If you made it to this point in the video, I mean, I don't really have any excuse for that. That was just a mess up, to be honest with you. I definitely, after what I saw and going back and rewatching some of it, Indiana just looks really, really good. I mean, I don't know any. It looks like Kurt Signetti is one step further into his tenure there. Everything looks a little bit better. And I think they're really, really good because that was a physical team they went up against, and they took their belt off and they whooped their ass. And anytime a team, because we had Illinois ranked, and so in theory, any team that goes and wins by 53 points or whatever it was, definitely deserves against a team that's ranked like that. They definitely deserve to be moved up. So I know we'll hear from the Hoosiers. We'll be hearing from them in the comment section, and I guess I'm telling you that it's rightful. We should.
Yeah, maybe Kurt Signetti hits our comments and says, "Hey, Google me." Yeah, because all I do is win. But yeah, absolutely. Fernando Mendoza for Heisman. That's the race right now.
I think the most impressive thing was the fact that they were able to run the ball for 312 yards.
Yeah,
I don't care who you're playing. That's incredible. Much less a team that is basically, it was in everybody's top 10. Illinois was. So there's really just, no reason not to have them ranked. So my bad. And there was another team I thought about ranking too, and I can't remember now who it was, but y'all let me know in the comment section where we messed that up. I'd love to hear from you. And hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you watching. All right. And those of you watching live, do the same thing for me. Hit that like button as we jump into these predictions. We've got some really awesome games to talk about this week. We're going to go through our 3, speaking of the times, why in the world we've got LSU and Ole Miss and Auburn at Texas A&M going on at 3:30 at the same time. And then we've got Oregon at Penn State and Alabama, Georgia going on at the same time.
Yeah.
That was really surprising to me to see that whatever the schedule, not the schedule makers, but the TV people, allowed that to happen. How is Oregon at Penn State not the Fox Noon game?
Right.
I didn't understand that either. How did that happen? Um, how did Fox miss the boat on that somehow or another? But anyway, let's jump into these 3:30 games first. I want to jump into this LSU Ole Miss game. Let's bump these out, these first couple of games real quick, and then we'll jump into some of the big dogs that we've got going on at 7:30. But this is one hell of an appetizer going on at 3:30. It's the LSU Tigers going on the road to face the Fighting Lane Kiffins of Ole Miss. And Ole Miss is favored in this one by 1.5. Over under set at the oddball 54.5. I know y'all can't see it on the video, but on our banner screen, you can see every other game is 52.5. This one's 54.5. Pretty similar lines in just about all of these games, or at least some of the big ones. This is going to be a really fun one, man. SEC showdown here. Both teams undefeated. LSU riding high in the rankings, everybody's rankings so far this season after a win against Clemson. It's been an interesting season for the LSU Tigers because it's been a flip-flop of identity from what they've been over the last couple of years, which is a high-powered offense that has been let down by a porous defense over the last couple of years. And statistically, that has completely flip-flopped this year. I mean, it's completely flip-flopped. And for any of us that looked at LSU's roster in the preseason or know anything about LSU, like I said, over the last couple of years, it's kind of baffling, to be honest with you. And reporters have been asking Brian Kelly about it, and he does his, he goes off on them, and they ask him why he can't run the ball, and he's pissed off that they asked that question, and can't believe they asked that. But I mean, I think we're all asking the question: what is going on with the LSU offense? And then on the other hand of that, you've got Ole Miss. That it's like this team. They don't rebuild on offense; they reload, and that is a trademark of Lane Kiffin because even when the starting quarterback goes down, he goes on the bench and brings up some quarterback from, Ferris State or whatever, Division II football, and this dude comes off the bench and looks like freaking Brett Favre. So it's an interesting stylistic matchup. Is kind of my point. Um, is the LSU defense for real? I guess is my biggest question going into this one because they're going to be tested here in a big way. And the question really is, are you an actual believer in what LSU has put on the field? Now, we all thought Clemson had a good offense, man. And so when LSU got out of that game, not giving up a lot of points, we all felt like really optimistic. Like, okay, this is what LSU has been working towards here, fixing this defense. The offense will come along. Maybe they'll figure out a way to get some run game going after, the offensive line issues get straightened out. But that hasn't happened. And I don't think this defense is ready for what they're about to see this weekend, man. I'll just be honest with you. I think this is a really, really tough spot for LSU going on the road. I think Lane Kiffin is all up in his bag right now with the offense. I think this one it's going to really depend on if LSU can come out here and get their head out of their ass offensively. Last week was the first real sign of life this year offensively. They scored 56 points against a nobody team, but it was the first sign of life. This wide receiver room is way too good. Garrett Nussmeier is way too good for this offense, I think, to continue on the trajectory it started the season. How much better it gets throughout the season, I don't know. We'll see. Ole Miss doesn't have world beaters on defense this year. So this one should be, I think, high scoring. I think I'm taking the over on the 54.5 in this game because I think this one could be decided in the 30s. But I think Ole Miss ends up winning this thing. And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to put the cart before the horse, I've also got Ole Miss in this game. I think that overall they've just been a better program. They've shown depth on the offensive side of the football. You mentioned the backup quarterback coming in and really having no drop off. If anything, the offense got better with the backup. So I've been really impressed with Ole Miss's offense. They're averaging 543 yards of offense per game. That's good for ninth in the country. And it's weird because you've got good on good now. You've got Ole Miss's offense versus LSU's defense, which is surprising a lot of people in the college football landscape. LSU's been really good on defense, so I'm excited to see this matchup. Can Ole Miss run the football? LSU's only given up 64 yards per game on the ground so far this year, and Ole Miss, while yes, Lane Kiffin likes to throw the ball, they really run the ball better, I think, than most people give them credit for. They're 25th in the country, at least in rushing yards per game, and then in passing, they're 14th in the country. So they're going to want to pass the football, but they've got to establish the run game first. And I think that that's where, if LSU is to win this football game, they're going to have to slow the run down, and they can do that. I'm not going to be surprised if LSU wins this game, but I've got Ole Miss winning it due to just the defense for Ole Miss kind of stepping up as well. Kind of going into that a little bit. You mentioned it, LSU's offense not running the football right at all. Uh, to be honest, passing has been just kind of lackluster. I guess they're averaging 275 yards per game through the year. A lot of that coming from last week when they step up in competition. What are they going to do? Right. Ole Miss's defense has been pretty good, 25th in the country against the pass. So, what gives here? Ole Miss hasn't been very good at stopping the run game and limiting the rushing yards, but that hasn't been LSU's offense. That's not what they want to do. So it's really it's good on good and bad on bad when you look at both sides of the football. What gives, right? I think that this line at 1.5 is perfect, giving a little bit of favor to the home team. I'm gonna put my chips in on the home team to win this one. It's gonna be a close game. I'd be surprised if they win it by more than 3 points or something like that. I do think it's going to be really close. But give me the home game. Give me the home team in this game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm with you. I agree 100%. I could keep going on this one because this is a super interesting matchup, and just some of the good on good and the good on bad, I guess, matchups in this one
Yeah.
is really really what intrigues me, because I don't believe that the LSU secondary is just a finished polished product. I don't believe that. I don't believe that they. I mean, the, their biggest wins are against Florida and Clemson. And these are teams that have just struggled mightily offensively. It's untested still, and that's been the biggest issue with the LSU defense over the last couple of years. And you know as well as I do, man, fixing a secondary in the SEC or any, really any Power Four conference from scratch, essentially. I mean, it takes years. It takes years to build up, unless you just strike gold in the transfer portal, which is possible. But LSU didn't do that, so not at that position anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond in a big spot here. Sounds like the quarterback's going to be able to make the start for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, I heard, was saying that as long as he's healthy and ready to go, that he'll be back to start. So I don't think we'll see Chambliss here, but on the off chance that we do, I still feel pretty good about it. I mean, the kid looked great, and he's not like some kind of young guy. I mean, this guy is a senior, folks. He's not. This is not a freshman they're pulling off the bench here. So this is an ex-national champion of a Division II team. So pretty interesting stuff there. All right, let's go to our other 3:30 matchup. It's the Auburn Tigers going on the road against the Texas A&M Aggies. It's an SEC showdown. The Aggies are 6.5-point favorites. Over under currently set at 52.5. Very popular number this week, the 52.5. Seeing it in a lot of the big games all over the board. The Tigers are coming off of a loss, one that Auburn fans are, I mean, for a lack of better words, have been bitching about, and I mean, rightfully so. We I'm not going to sit here and get on this long spill about the rule book and all this and that, but it was obviously a bad call. There's bad calls every game. This one cost Auburn a touchdown. You know what I'm saying? It allowed Oklahoma to score. Um, the the refs, after going back and rewatching it and watching some replays, that wide receiver checked in with the ref on the sideline, like right before the play was snapped. He literally looked at him and was like, "Yep, I'm on." And the ref's like, all right. So, and apparently Oklahoma told the refs before the game what they were going to do. So, pretty interesting stuff there. I guess what I'm kind of getting at is, I think for us that are sitting at home, we get to sit here all week and talk about this, and it's not going to affect the game at all. Auburn, on the other hand, I hope they're not sitting around talking about it in the locker room or around the practice field this week, or you know what I'm saying? And because it can go one of two ways. It can be spun negatively throughout the team, right? Or maybe it's motivation for the Auburn Tigers here. Nevertheless, the opponent that you're going to face is an extremely physical Texas A&M team that looks like a double-headed monster offensively, quite frankly. They're moving the ball through the air. They're running the ball effectively. I love the running back room. I like some of the pieces that you've got downfield. Love the dual threat quarterback. He adds a whole element to the game with his legs and his arm. That is Mr. Reed. So, look, I mean, you can't flinch if you're Auburn here after taking a loss like that. You got to pick the pieces right back up and jump right back out there. That's a really tough situation, and I'm not sure how Auburn's going to respond to it. Beyond all that, just the plot set around this game, I'm worried about Auburn offensively, just because of the fact that I think they're one-dimensional. And whenever you go against a really good defense like this, that like Texas A&M is going to put out there on the field this Saturday, you can't be one-dimensional, man. I mean, you've got to have some kind of balance. And Auburn wants to run. And it's going to be tough to do that against Texas A&M anyway. But whenever you don't have a threat to stretch the field, then it makes it that much harder, especially with a defensive-minded coach like Mike Elko. He knows what's up, man. I mean, there's no this guy's sharp on the defensive side of the ball, especially. So Jackson Arnold just is not that guy. He's not, at least he hasn't been yet, a guy that's been able to accurately and consistently stretch the ball down the field, even though Auburn very clearly has the guys that can do it. They haven't been able to do that, and they're going to want to try to pound the rock, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to. Give me Texas A&M to cover this spread here. I think Texas A&M is actually pretty damn good. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Texas A&M has looked really solid so far this year. Surprisingly, they're leading on offense in passing the football, 16th in the country at 323.3 yards per game. A pass first team. And to me, when I look at this game, I'm looking at Auburn. I'm saying, can you stop the big play? Right? Texas A&M so far this year, they're averaging 15.6 yards per completion. That's good for 7th in the country. And then on the flip side, you look at Auburn's defense, they're 92nd in the country, averaging 11.8 yards per completion on defense, right? So, they're giving up a lot of the big plays, in other words. And I'm looking at A&M and wondering, are they going to continue with the explosiveness in the pass game? Love what Le'Veon Moss brings to the run game. Love what Marcel Reed brings to the run game. But make no mistake about it, Texas A&M is a pass-first team right now, which is pretty surprising considering they do have a decent defense. And typically, when we see these defensive-minded head coaches, they want to run the football, protect the football. I mean, every team would love to run and protect the football, but maybe they don't feel as confident in the run game for whatever reason. It's going to be really interesting, though. Do they want to run the football here in this game? Probably not. I mean, Auburn's rush defense has been outstanding. They're averaging giving up 1.9 yards per rush, which is good for third in the country. So once again, if you're not going to run the football, if you're Texas A&M, can you get the explosive plays downfield? We'll have to wait and see. Auburn's got a pretty decent secondary, so they could kind of change things and just try to keep the ball in front of them in this game, limit the explosive plays, and maybe that works. On the flip side, you look at what Jackson Arnold did last week, and actually he had pretty comparable numbers to Mateer from the game last week. Difference is he got sacked 10 times, but a lot of that had to do with what they were trying to do and playing from behind, having to pass the football a ton. It really kind of changed things up. And while I don't think that this is a world-beating SEC offensive line, I don't think that they're extremely incompetent. And then you look at Texas A&M's defense, and they really haven't done a whole lot. They're giving up 139 yards per game rushing, and passing they're giving up 211, which is not terrible. But I mean, this is a team that's in the middle of the pack across the country on defense, which is very surprising. So I've got this game being a little bit higher scoring. I like the over 52.5 in this game. I think Texas A&M wins it, but I'm not ready to bet the -6.5. A touchdown sounds about right. I could see this being a 3 or 4 point win though for Texas A&M.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that. It's funny. We're all these games, the over under set at 52.5 that we're talking about: Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, and Auburn, Texas A&M, and even LSU, Ole Miss is right there around 52.5. Some kind of parlay. I don't believe in parlays. I mean, if you just want to burn money, play parlays, but just parlay all 4 overs right in those games, and maybe win you some money. That would be a fun little $10 thing to try out there. Be like hitting the lottery, winning that sucker. That you got about the same chances, but still, I see a lot of overs hitting this week, and I see that being a possibility in this one. But you know what? I will say this: Auburn's defense surprised me a bit against Oklahoma. Now we've talked about Oklahoma maybe kind of had their B game going, and I think that's a sign of a good team if you can go out there with your B game and win, especially in conference like that. But maybe Auburn's defense is a little better than what I thought they were to start the season. We're going to see this weekend because they're going to be tested for sure. Y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and come and hang out with us, all you Auburn, Texas A&M fans. Thanks for watching. All right, we're going to keep it moving here, folks, and thank y'all for watching as you're on the way to work this morning or on the way to breakfast or whatever you're doing. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. Y'all hit that like button for us, too. That helps us out an absolute ton and a half, so we certainly do appreciate it. Got some awesome games to talk about here, so we're going to keep it going with the 7:30 slate. We've got a doubleheader at 7:30. The first one that we'll talk about is the Oregon Ducks going on the road. It's going to be a whiteout at Penn State. Penn State currently a 3.5 point favorite. I've actually seen, I think this number has moved in some places tonight a little bit, but I certainly suspect that this number is going to move a little bit as the week goes on. We'll see where the big money comes in. Over under set at 52.5, very common trend this week, as we've said here on the live show. I'll make it very plain and simple with this one. I think Dante Moore is a better quarterback than Drew Aller, and I don't think that Penn State can win these big games. And it's not that I don't. It's not just that I don't think it. It's just that they haven't. They flat out have not, and I can't bet on Penn State to win this thing. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I mean, my money has got to be on the Oregon side of this at +3.5, Mason. because I I don't think this program they obviously have some type of curse on them or something, dude, because they cannot get over the hump. Like this past postseason was the best we've seen Penn State play in some of those big moments, but still weren't able to get over the hump. Um, I just I can't bet on James Franklin's crew until I see him do it. On paper, I see why they're favored in this game. I really do. They had some awesome pieces come back from last year. And again, I think they surprised a lot of people in the postseason last year with the way that they played because that was a better version of the offense than what we've seen in the past few years. Um, but we know what Penn State's going to want to do. They're going to want to pound the rock and you know play a kind of a conservative approach, not put their defense in binding positions. Um, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like that's enough to get it done in these big games. They don't win enough of the big moments, and I think Oregon is more geared to be able to win those big moments. So, give me Oregon on the road here to cover the plus 3.5. Maybe Penn State does win this thing, but I think I think 3.5 is too many points. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I've also I've got the over in this game as well, 52 and a half. I know that that's kind of a high number, and when you look at these defenses, they're both playing really well. Um, Penn State's given up 3.6 yards per play. That's good for third in the country. And Oregon's given up 4 yards per play, which is good for 15th in the country. So both defenses on paper have been really good. But then you look at who they've played, right? Not exactly world beaters. Neither of these teams have had to show anything
No.
offensively or defensively. And that's why I think, okay, when you look at the schedules, both teams had to have circled this game and said, "Hey, this is one that we gotta kind of save our chips for." And then we go all in, and then we can go back to playing vanilla and kind of wait on the bigger games coming up. I know Penn State's got Ohio State. I don't know that Oregon plays another tough game, to be honest with you, um, but looking at this matchup, I think I really think that both teams have held back a lot. This is one where I think Oregon could win 100%. Although I did see their offense kind of take a step backwards. Um, you know, considering who they played, it doesn't concern me very much. But going up against Northwestern, put up only 34. Didn't cover a 26.5 point spread. Whoop de doo. Um, but again, going back to what I said before, I think that you're going to see two completely different offenses come out. I think Kotelnicki has plenty of wrinkles left for this game plan going up against Oregon, and we're going to see it. We're going to see probably a pretty solid running game, I think, from Penn State, and then Oregon. They've actually ran the ball pretty well, averaging 255 yards per game. But going back to who they played, they wanted to keep the game short. They want to shorten it by running the football more. And, they kind of had their way with the defenses that they faced so far this year. I just think when I was breaking this game down, I kind of looked at it and said, okay, we don't actually know what either of these teams are. All right. And that's kind of the main point that I was able to come up with is that neither of these teams have had to put anything on paper, right? They're not putting anything on film. What are we going to see? And this is a good meter check, I guess, for both teams. This is a playoff game essentially. I've got both of these teams in the playoff at the end of the year, and so what we see this week is going to really dictate what we see moving forward from both of these teams for the rest of the season. First real test for either one, so I'll be excited to see kind of how both of these teams measure up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this game does go a long way in deciding what's going to go on in the Big Ten. And there's another Big Ten matchup going on as well. It's Ohio State and Washington. Ohio State's going to go on the road to a place they're unfamiliar with. And so with that being said, I think there's a possibility that there's a seismic shift in the Big Ten. I'm not saying Washington's going to beat Ohio State, but we'll learn more about what Ohio State is. I do believe we'll learn at least something. So I think there's a chance that we come out of week 5 with a totally different perspective on the Big Ten and what it's going to have, what impact the Big Ten is going to have on the college football playoff this season. I think a lot of people have got these two as the top 2 teams. Even though Ohio State is ranked number 1, I think with everything that Ohio State lost last year, I think there's a large population of people that think, this is a grand opportunity for Oregon to step up in this situation. I'm really surprised. I mean, how much is the whiteout worth in points? Because I'm just really surprised to see this line at 3.5. I don't think it's going to last long. I think people are going to be busting the hell out of Oregon plus 3.5. So if you plan on betting it, I think you better go ahead and do it because I cannot see big money coming in from the betting public on Penn State in this one. I just can't see that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I Maybe you're a glutton for punishment, but I mean, betting on Penn State to win these big games, I mean, that's got to be getting old at this point because they just haven't been able to convert, man. We both like Oregon. We're all on board. We're on the same picks this week, man. All you Oregon and Penn State folks, y'all come hang out with us. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We love you. We need you, and we want you here on the First and Long College Football Show. All right, we're both on the same teams on each one of these games, and that is scary. Because we did that on the betting show last week, and it did not work out. Speaking of which, all you folks watching live, y'all come hang out with us on Thursday. That's whenever we get a chance to talk about any and every game that you guys want to talk about. We'll any game we'll talk about that we possibly can. But that betting show on Thursday is called Between the Lines. It's our best bets against the spread, over unders, money line, all that good stuff, and it's my favorite show that we do every single week. We get to talk about where we think the best value is, and it's a good chance to talk about the games again, right before we hit them. We got some good Friday games this week too, by the way, so you'll want to come join us, and we'll talk some about those Friday games going on, one of which was Florida State and Virginia. That just give y'all a little something. Take Virginia in the spread there. That's one of my best bets of the week. Little spoiler. Y'all come visit us Thursday, and we'll talk more about it. All right. It's the big kahuna, my friend. It's the Alabama Crimson Tide going on the road to the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is a 2.5-point favorite in this one, and the over-under is set at, surprise, surprise, 52.5. Very popular number in week 5. I am obviously partial here. I'm a Georgia fan. You can see we got some damn good dogs pictured behind me here. I'm right here on UGA Avenue, if you will. Mason, Georgia has had a hard time with Alabama, and that's an understatement. Since the 33-18 victory that Georgia had in the national championship game in 2021, other than that game, it's been a tough series for the Georgia Bulldogs. Really, ever since I guess the first season or second season that Nick Saban was at Alabama, it's been a struggle. And I can't bet on my Georgia Bulldogs to do this until I see it. It's kind of like the Penn State and Oregon situation. It's similar but different. Um, Penn State doesn't necessarily have a problem against Oregon, but they have a problem winning these big games. Well, Georgia specifically has a problem winning big games against Alabama. It's an issue, and I don't know if it's like a mental block. I thought it was the fact that it was Nick Saban there at Alabama that was doing it. Last year, we watched Kalen DeBoer's Alabama Crimson Tide go up 28-0 on Georgia before I could even blink, before I could even get into my guacamole and chips. It was 28-0. As a Georgia fan, I sure as hell hope that that's not going to be the case this weekend. I don't think that's going to be the case this weekend, but man, Giovanni Bernard and Mr. Williams have the potential to really give Georgia a hard time in the secondary this weekend. Ty Simpson looks a whole hell of a lot better than he did week 1 against Florida State. He's been looking really, really sharp. And don't look now. I mean, it looks like Alabama after that first week, what was a very embarrassing loss, just because of the fact that Florida State was 2-10 last year. Um, I think they've looked better so far. They've done what they've needed to do since then. You can't really ask any more out of them. Can Georgia's secondary hold up against these playmakers while Georgia's defense is clearly going to be concentrated on stopping the run? Jam Miller is back and healthy, or healthy enough to play anyway. Here's the thing. Here's what I'm really worried about. Georgia really struggled against Tennessee when Georgia was focused on stopping Tennessee's run game, specifically early in that game, man. When Georgia crept down into the box and allowed those one-on-one situations to happen on the outside and with the slot receiver up the middle, where guys were literally having to cover one-on-one, Georgia struggled. I mean, couldn't keep secondary players off the ground, man. I mean, they were just falling all over the place. And I think Georgia's going to come out with that same approach, because that is what Kirby Smart is. He wants to take something away. And that something is almost always going to be the run game. Because if Georgia can take away the run game from you, they feel like that gives them the best chance to win. It makes you one-dimensional. And they feel like over the course of 4 quarters, they're going to be able to stop one-dimensional teams. And 95% of the time, that is correct. I mean, Kirby Smart has a track record of doing so. But when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. And it makes you look really bad. It makes your defense look really bad. And there was moments in that Tennessee game where there was a lot of Georgia fans around the country that were like, whoa, okay, this doesn't look familiar. This is not what we were expecting from what we were considering to be possibly a generational defense, another generational defense of Kirby Smart's. Are they just young and it was just nerves? Or do you think that that's a trend that continues? And if depending on how you answer that question, I think is kind of going to depend on, how you bet on this game and how you kind of see this one going. I can't take Georgia to cover here. I pray to God they win this game. That would make me very, very, very happy. Honestly, winning this game for Georgia fans, I think would make Georgia fans as happy as a regular season win could possibly make you at this point if you're a Georgia fan. You've won national championships recently. You've won SEC championships recently. Regular season games aren't, the end-all, be-all. But if you can win this one, I mean, that's about the highest honor that a Georgia fan could have bestowed upon them from their football team at this point in the regular season. So if Georgia can get it done, it'd be huge. If Georgia beats Alabama, Mason, I don't know if Alabama's got a shot to the playoff, because if they lose here, I don't see them going undefeated the rest of the year. So that's another element that I'm looking at in this one as well. Are we getting wounded animal mode from Alabama here? Because if we are, that scares the hell out of me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the playoff discussion, I'm ready to have that after the game's played. I understand where you're at with that. It's just depending on how this game plays out. I mean, I could see Alabama winning the rest of their games if this is a really close game. Going to Athens, I'm hearing that the fans are going to black it out. I don't think that we're going to see Georgia in black jerseys necessarily, but it should be a pretty ruckus environment. So if Alabama is able to hold serve with Georgia on the road, which has been Kalen DeBoer's bugaboo in a season and 4 weeks so far. They lost on the road, obviously, to Florida State to start the season, and then kind of bounced back against lesser opponents. The offense showed a lot more propensity, I guess, to get down the field and score. Alabama's offense is kind of juiced towards passing the football, right? And we just saw last week, well, 2 weeks ago now, since both teams were on a bye. But we just saw Georgia struggle against the passing attack. Tennessee didn't even try to run the football pretty much against Georgia. And I think back to your point, the first 3 drives that Tennessee scored on, scored touchdowns on, 21 points in 3 drives. Georgia was still kind of playing to stop the run, right? When the adjustment was made to stop the pass, that's when we saw Georgia's defense actually have some success. But Georgia, what was interesting about that game is that they did not get to the quarterback in the passing situations, and a lot of that has to do with Tennessee's offensive scheme. They want to spread you out, make you play with a light box, right? Make you play man, a little bit of cover on the back end at times, and try to win with 6 in the box. Basically, is kind of the formula for beating Tennessee. Alabama's a little bit more of a pro style. I'll be interested to see what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have as a game plan on offense going into this game. Do they try to do what Tennessee does and play a little bit more of a spread type of system? Obviously, we saw them have some success. Georgia's defense is giving up 217 yards passing per game right now. That's 80th in the country. A lot of that has to do with Tennessee, like I said. But Alabama is 9th in the country at 335 yards per game on offense that they're able to kind of get. But as far as rushing the football, 103rd in the country for Alabama, right? I know they get Jam Miller back, but I don't think that having him back is just going to fix the run game. So Alabama is going to have to scheme up some passing plays here and try to win through the air. I think that they're going to have some success. I'm a little bit worried as a Georgia fan that, it feels like Georgia's the better team here, but it's one of those moments where it's like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Georgia lost this game? And if we're talking about the SEC, kind of like we've been talking about, all off season, the SEC. In the SEC, we've been saying there's probably going to be a lot of 2-loss teams, 3-loss teams. Nobody's going to go undefeated in the SEC, right? Well, in order for that to happen, I think Georgia is going to lose this football game, right? And I'm really concerned. I certainly hope it doesn't happen. But to me, I think that the Alabama passing attack is going to be good enough. I haven't seen what I thought I would see out of these DBs for Georgia. And I feel like they're going to be able to push the ball down the field. I've got Georgia losing this game. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be high scoring. I like the over here in this game more than I would play the spread necessarily. But man, it's just been really tough for Georgia to win in the regular season against Alabama. I think unfortunately Kirby goes 1-7 against the Tide here this week.
Ouch. Yeah, man. Now Georgia's offense, I think, has definitely got an opportunity to do some things through the air in this one. I'm interested to see how Georgia's able to run the ball on Alabama. That defensively, Alabama has played a lot better than what they have in that first game. Since then, they've played a lot better. Seems like they're tackling better, things like that. I'm interested to see how that translates to this game. Was it just because they're playing lesser opponents? Do we see more missed tackles? Because I don't know how many missed tackles there were in that game against Florida State, but there was a lot. And
and they do get Tim Keenan back, which is going to be huge for the running game. I think defensively, as far as the DBs go for Alabama, probably the best in the country, and it shows. It's a no-fly zone on the back end. So to me, that's kind of my concern. If this gets higher scoring, which I think it will, is Georgia going to be able to push the ball downfield and get vertical against this secondary? I think it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, I think they can do it. I think Georgia's got the guys that can do that this year. But if they get one-dimensional and they can't run the football, that's when I think it gets difficult to do that because there's no guessing game anymore. And so can Georgia run the football? It's somewhat effectively and somewhat efficiently. The offensive line has not been something that the Georgia fan base has been super proud of over the last couple of years. So I think that the Georgia offensive line is going to have their best game that they've had in the last couple of seasons to be able to get Georgia over the hump here because, yes, I think Georgia has the receivers, and I think Gunnar Stockton can get them the ball if they have opportunities to get one-on-one out there. And the only way that they're going to do that is going to be by effectively and efficiently running the football in key moments in this game. Um, and if that offensive line doesn't show up, or they look like the offensive line that showed up last year at Ole Miss or other times throughout the season last year, I think it's stick a fork in them. I think Alabama wins this thing in Athens. Georgia hasn't lost at home in a long time, my friend. So that I think that's where this 2.5 comes from. Georgia being at home here, that pretty much lets you know that Vegas and so far the betting public feels like these teams are very even. So it's going to be a super interesting one. Again, another game that's going to go a long way in deciding the SEC. Alabama loses here. I mean, you can. I put my name on it. Alabama loses here. They're not going the rest of the season undefeated. It's I just we talked about it time and time again. I don't think there's going to be really any teams go undefeated the whole season in the SEC, but I mean, there's just so much ball left, man. I mean, you're going to struggle with somebody throughout the season, just as many good teams as there are, and as evenly spread as the talent is these days. And with that being said, if Georgia wins this game, I don't know. I doubt they probably go undefeated the rest of the season either. So I think it can go both ways. But regardless, Alabama getting to 2 losses this early in the season would certainly put a shockwave throughout the locker room there and through the football program there at Alabama. And really, really back them into a corner here early in the 2025 season. It's must-see TV, man. Must-see TV, no doubt about it. Who's going to show up in Athens? We can't wait to see it. I would love. I personally, I'm always against the blackouts and all that. Just do it. Just freaking do it, man. We lose to them every time anyway during the regular season. What do you got to lose? I don't. If you brought out the black jerseys this weekend, would everybody blame the black jerseys if you lost? Because you lose to them every time anyway. So just rock the black jerseys, man. Let it roll. Um, I'm not picking them to win, but I'll support the black jerseys if they want to break them out. Give me Alabama in this one though, man. We'll see what happens. All right, and that's all of our games that we're going to talk about this week. We've got them all.
Hopefully that's one where we're both on Alabama, so Georgia ends up winning. Like, I'd be happy to be wrong.
That is 100% what I think that's what I think I'm doing in my head. I'm playing reverse psychology on the college football gods, and I'm outsmarting the college football gods here for all of us Georgia fans. So go Dogs! I hope I'm wrong, but I just can't pick the Dogs to beat Alabama at this point until I see it. I just got to see it. All right, all you folks, first and long college football fans, we certainly do appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. I hope everybody has a great day at work and whatever else you got going on. Come join us on Thursday. We've got Between the Lines. That's our weekly betting show. It's our best bets against the spread. We will be looking to battle back after what was a tough week in the betting booth, week 4, with some wacky outcomes in some games. Come join us. We'd love to hear what your best bets are, and that's when we get a chance to talk about all the other, smaller scale games, but very entertaining games we've got scheduled on Friday and throughout Saturday. So we hope to see y'all there. Y'all hit the like button for us on the way out. Everybody have a great day, a great week, and we'll see y'all on Thursday on Between the Lines. Thank y'all.